Why is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
This guy in Philly. Can we talk about this for a second?
Yeah, which guy in Philly?
So this guy who's wanted for this shooting.
Oh yeah.
So it was on the news last night, like they were teasing it all night. The only time in the past year I've put on live television.
Yes.
Um, and they're so it's the news anchor voice of police are looking for the suspect with the shooting, this robbery, and then they show the picture.
Yeah.
And part of me was like, "Ooh, did they not mean to show that? Did they want me to see the t-shirt that had a giant candy cane and written in very, very large letters, like Frankie say relax size letters, like choose life size letters?
hmm
It ain't gonna lick itself."
I mean,
I would have thought they would have had somebody blur that out, or
but it's a candy cane, so
it's
it's
a
not
candy cane. Oh, no, no, not the inappropriateness of it.
right. Because is
Just
it inappropriate if it's a candy cane?
listen, I could still not tell you what that guy looks like. I know what shirt he's wearing.
Well, that's the thing. So it's really about
Mostly because I was like, "Ooh, where'd he get that?"
right, because it's kind of hilarious.
It is. And the subject and the way I know he has that shirt, not good.
No, it's
Not good at all.
terrible.
It's awful.
But then it's like, is he wearing the shirt now or is this an old photograph?
Well, this was like surveillance video. So
Oh, so
not
he was wearing the
so
shirt.
not only was he wearing it, he was wearing it while he committed a crime slash potential homicide.
Right.
So that's like
So
some
it's
joke.
like
Sorry if I'm keeping you up. This I know it's kind of boring when we're talking
no,
about
it's not boring at all. I was
uh
like not
uh
committing anything horrible.
right. It just, I mean, in some ways it's the perfect thing to wear while you're committing a crime because everyone's going to be
Concentrating
looking
on the
at, yeah.
shirt
So I think
and then
next
immediately going to the candy shop.
right next time I go and hold up a bank, I think I will be wearing my female body inspector t-shirt.
Of course.
FBI, right? So
I mean, kind of right. Of course.
did you see the guy who
From
did
which
this? I don't know,
island?
but he's got a sense of humor.
I mean, because you can buy those in every resort town on the planet. So which would you want? Your Cancun one? Do you want me to get
I
you one
know.
in St. Martin? I
It's
don't think they sell them in St. Bart's, but if they did, I would definitely get you a St. Bart's one
St.
because you
Bart's
want
too
the
classy.
classy one.
Right. Well, I told you the one I saw in Cancun, the t-shirt.
Which one?
It said, "I'm not a gynecologist, but I'll look into it."
Oh, yes,
Which funny,
absolutely.
even funnier, they misspelled gynecologist.
Yeah, see that one I would buy you. I would buy you that every day.
Every single day.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I still no idea what that guy looks like.
No, of course not.
Um,
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
I don't want to give away anything about the movie,
Go ahead.
so we will ask you to explain, give us the log line for the film, so you can ruin it for people.
Right. As much or as little as you want.
Yes,
So I can give that to you now if you'd like.
hit us, go for it.
So the log line for the movie is, it's about a young woman who thinks she's been hired for a normal photography job until she finds out why she was really hired.
You make it sound so easy when you put it like that.
Put a lot of work into my log line.
That's just so. Oh, please go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, and the sort of the tagline was like, "Oh, what's it about?" I said, "Well, it's a story about, love, loss, and the price of grief."
So what led you to this story? What led you to writing this and putting this all together?
Yeah, so I've been screenwriting for quite a long time, been in a lot of contests, done very well, a lot of traction. And so I keep notes about ideas. And I had, of course, as we all have, we've heard people say wedding photographer. So many years ago, I wrote down funeral photographer and had made a bunch of notes about a feature length film idea. And then in the fall or winter of 2018, I woke up on a Saturday morning and the entire short film like flashed before my eyes. I got up, I wrote the first draft that day, and it was a completely different narrative than I had expected to do in the feature length version, and then just sort of snowballed from there. So that's where the original idea came from.
We should all be so lucky to be able to write that first draft in an afternoon.
Ta-da.
That's
It's
yeah.
like the first time, and it was only because it's in the end it's a 16-minute film with credits. So from a short film perspective, it was pretty clunky, but at least I got the story beats out there, right?
Right. Now, I noticed on the film, you are credited as it's credited as a film by, I believe, with your name. And you were listed as a writer and a producer. Did you take that credit because of the creative work and lifting required to come up with the film and then find the money to pay for said film?
Yes, all of those things, Luke, you just said are true. So, I wrote it. I put together a lot of the building blocks. So I did a crowdfunding campaign. We raised about $25,000 on Seed and Spark. Of course, as always, put in some of my own money, and put the building blocks together. Got introduced to producer Troy Daniel Smith, who was in LA for about 11 years, a producer, casting director. He now lives just north of me in St. Joe. So we got connected. He was just a fantastic producer. Brought a couple of producers on board. We got Ashley Thompson as our director from Chicago, and she's the one who actually put together the entire crew. And she was remarkable. And so I mean, even down to, finding the location, finding the car, finding the places for people to stay, the cast and crew. So I did a lot of boots on the ground line producer, and then I guess, raising the funds, executive producer.
And was this entire thing shot in Michigan?
Yes, it was all shot in Michigan. So I live in Sawyer, Michigan, and I don't know how much you know about the Harbor Country area here in Southwest Michigan. But the funeral home, the Wagner family, who allowed us, who were fantastic and supportive through the entire process, let us use their funeral home, which is like 100-year-old funeral home. And we literally had to do nothing to the space besides, put in some black tissue boxes and change a couple things. But everything you see in the film, from the wallpaper to the set, is everything that was in that funeral home.
Set dressing is no set dressing. It's amazing.
Luke's just getting more jealous and more jealous, and everything that comes out of your mouth. I'm just watching him just stew.
Well, and to digress just shortly, my passion is writing and creativity. But my day job is I'm a consultant for 25 plus years. I'm a communication trainer and a certified leadership coach. So I work a lot with building businesses based upon healthy relationships and the corresponding language. And I was very pleasantly surprised at how much of that translated to this project.
Yeah.
Including the community here in Harbor Country, especially Three Oaks. And that's another thing, putting together and getting 60 plus extras for 3 days. The embracing that this community has for creativity overall and filmmaking. It has a storied history here. Do you remember the Christmas movie Prancer by any chance?
Of course.
So Prancer was shot in Three Oaks, and it's coming up on its 35th anniversary, and we're having a fundraiser so that in the fall, or in the wintertime, we can have a huge event celebrating the history of that. So it's yes, a lot of hard work by myself and our team, but also it was really, the community met us in the middle with that as well.
So.
Was Prancer, is he still around? Is he available to make the screening?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, he lives in the area. And so they're hoping to maybe even get some of the original extras that were here, some of the cast. It's we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, we got to go for that.
Yeah, and since you mentioned, Heidi, that Luke is a little jealous, I'm going to make him more jealous. So
there we go. Prancer. You guys on LinkedIn?
No.
Okay.
I was going to talk more.
But
I rode Prancer to this meeting.
Son of a. Okay.
This guy. Why I oughta.
That's amazing.
But one of my producers is a very good friend of mine, Jim Benoit, and he's retired from TV commercial production in Chicago. So he had a great relationship with Cutters Studios. I don't know if you've ever heard of Cutters. So Cutters did all of our post-production, color, sound design, sound mix, finish, credits, all of that. So they were a massive partner on this project too.
Awesome.
So I'm very grateful for that. And we rented an RE Alexa Mini, and it was a really, for my first produced thing that I've written, it was for a short film. It was a pretty extravagant production.
Yeah, and it looks like it. Like it looks it looks very nice, and there's that great drone shot there. I'm assuming that's a drone, not a crane.
It is a drone. Yep.
I was just like, oh, you don't normally see this. So how did you get to this point? You said you've been writing a lot, you've been writing screenplays, entering competitions and such. Is this just always been a passion of yours?
Yeah, it has. It's been, in trying to find the balance of living that creative life while also having a very busy career. I got to the point where I was like, I just have to make something, not only to show my chops as a writer, which, as a quick aside to that, I think in some ways it was a bit, quote unquote, dangerous for me to do a film like this as a writer, because I'm like a story structure fanatic. But this story I wrote to feel like you're looking at a photograph where the story beats are super subtle and under the surface, that sometimes on first watchings, people don't really get it, because some of the beats and so forth are hidden in tiny pieces of dialogue. Like all the info is there. But, having been someone who really adheres to 3-act structure, this is sort of a bit of a digression from that of bearing it under the surface, right? I don't know how much you picked up on it. I don't know if you watched it once or a couple times, or...
I just watched it the once, but just hearing you say that, clearly Sid Field would not stop throwing up if he watched this.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
In a good way, I think.
Yeah. The best possible way.
What was sort of your influence, or kind of like idea board, the sort of things that you threw out as touchstones to sort of like to the cast and crew to say, here's the vibe we're going for? I got a very Rod Serling vibe, but that could be me.
It is you and others.
Okay, well, I feel better.
Yeah. I had a great quote from a friend of mine who read it, who said, "I wish Rod Serling was alive to read this," when he read the script.
He'd be very, very old.
Yes, he would be very old.
Yeah,
right. And he may not have wanted to take the time to try to figure out my film. He's got stuff to do, right? It's Rod Serling.
Put more smoking in there. But anyway.
Yeah, if you or any of your listeners, viewers, there's a great set of videos on YouTube of him like doing a round table with some young people. It's in black and white, and he's talking about creativity and story. And it's a marvelous thing to watch if you want to be continually inspired by. So yes, to answer your question, Twilight Zone, I'm a massive fan of The Sixth Sense. I'm a massive fan of stuff like that. I'm in a... there's an international organization called Shut Up and Write, which is...
What do they advocate?
They advocate it's shutting up and writing, surprisingly enough.
Wow. So subtle.
Yeah. I can tell Luke and I have the same sense of humor. I don't know if
to see
that's
their
good
t-shirts.
or bad.
Yeah.
But so it's really great because it's just dedicated time to write, and there's no pressure for peer feedback. There's no pressure for that. So we have one here in Southwest Michigan, up in St. Joe, on Mondays at 6. So I have some fellow writers, and one of my fellow writers, her name is Mickey, talks about magical realism, and she writes like that. So she and I have been having some great conversations. So I've always liked magical realism. One of my all-time favorite movies is Unbreakable. Another M. Night Shyamalan movie that it just gets into the DNA of character and the DNA of story. And I like things that are also what I call rolling twists, because audiences are becoming so much more intelligent.
Right.
That, like, even in this piece, right, it's there's more than one twist. Well, just so we don't ruin it for any of your viewers.
Right.
So stuff like that. That's kind of the stuff that's continues to inspire me. Yeah.
I always find it fascinating, the ability for filmmakers to jam so much, not jam so much, to accomplish so much in a short film. Because I feel, I love a good feature, I love a good epic, but I really now feel that a story is better told in a short film more often than not. And I feel the rest of the world needs to catch up and realize that.
100% agree with you, Heidi. And I think that as you're sort of saying that, it's making me think of a couple things. I think one is we are becoming increasingly more conditioned to like smaller, bite-sized input and entertainment. And I think what that's showing people is that the challenge to tell an impactful story in 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes is a skill in and of itself. I'm thinking out loud here, but it's almost the difference between a marathon runner and a sprinter, right?
Yeah.
People think, well, they're both runners. Yeah, but it's a completely different set of skills. There's certain commonalities, and there are channels. And I don't know if we want people watching my film before the festival, but we're super fortunate to be included on one of the most prolific short film channels on YouTube, Amaletto. And within just a few months, we've had 31,000 views of the film.
Awesome.
Hundreds of comments. Essentially what they are doing, and they're a great channel, they curate some fantastic shorts. And my goal of this film is I wanted it to be a reflection on one's own experience with love, loss, remembrance, and grief. Because I write and create from the standpoint of theme is a mirror, not a lesson. I want to tell somebody this is what you should think about somebody dying or how you should grieve. I wanted it to be a mirror. And some of the comments I'm getting, and I'm involved in the conversations on that listing on YouTube, it has achieved my ultimate goal, which was to connect to people's own emotions. And I don't know how much that happened with either of you, but sometimes subsequent viewings have that happen. Yeah.
One thing I've always said when it comes to filmmaking is that somewhere along the process, you are going to be the only person who thinks this is a good idea for a film. And I found it to be true every single time. And basically, it takes your sort of intestinal fortitude and strength to be like, I don't care, we're going to be making this. And for something like this that is a little more subtle, a little more requires some attention, even at a shorter length, did you find that kind of pushback from people going, I don't know if you're there yet, or was it just a constant, or were you just constantly kind of going, damn it, this is ready, we're making this is the cut, I'm happy with this?
Yeah, that's an outstanding question, and it really having this being my first produced piece of writing really drove home the collaborative nature. And I don't say this as false humility, I say this as a fact. That Kevin McGurn, our editor, was as much a storyteller on this project as I was as the writer. And the sort of triad between Ashley, our director, Kevin, the editor, and me. So we shot in December of 2019, and of course COVID hit in March of 2020. So all of our post-production was done remote. We were never in the same room. And so what we would do is Kevin would do a cut, I would make my notes, he'd make his notes, Ashley would make her notes, we'd meet via Zoom exactly like we are now for 2-3 hours, do a new cut. And so what happened was to answer your question very specifically, Luke, it was the constant collaborative trying to strike the balance between the subtlety and the sort of overt narrative. And of course, being a self-deprecating creative, I can have those moments of doubt where I was like, is it too subtle, right? You know, we did 25 film festivals. I attended a lot of them. I attended a lot of Q&As. And there were some people that totally got it. And there were some people that I saw on their face, they're like, what the hell did I just watch? I don't get it.
Yeah, welcome to my country.
And I have to be okay with that because that's the creative choice we made. Right?
Was that something you knew going into the festivals, that this was just going to fly past some folks?
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of anxiety around that because, as we all know, unless it's an online festival, people have one shot to see the film,
Right.
right? And I remember standing in, without letting any spoilers out of the bag. I was in front of an audience of about 60 to 70 people, and they were asking questions, and we started to talk about the subtlety. And um, I said, well, let me ask all of you a question. I said, what do you think happened to so and so? And everybody just sits there, and one guy gives the answer, and the whole audience goes, oh, right? So 90+% of the people were moderately not clear once they saw what actually happens in this film and what it actually means to the characters. That's where the emotion. We were in the Indie Film Fest in Indianapolis, and I met the programmer who chose our film. She watched it twice. She was at the screening that we had at the festival. By the way, that festival is outstanding. If anybody has a chance to go to the Indie Film Fest in Indianapolis, highly recommended. I walked past her to do the Q&A, and she stopped me and said, Mark, this time I got emotional. So I guess I achieved what I wanted to achieve, and we did as a team of creatives, but there's still those people out there that are going to be like, I don't get it.
Of course. But
Is
you
it-
want that. You need that. Because
Yeah.
you need everyone to be able to talk to those people and go, you really, you didn't? And then that's the dialogue. If everyone gets it, then you didn't achieve anything.
Yeah, I love that you use that word, Heidi, dialogue, because one of the ways I describe this is, of all the stuff I've written, this is the piece that has more questions than answers,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Although, do you wish that maybe 3 or 4 people knew the answer? Like, do you just go back to the hotel room and bang your head on the wall, being like, "Come on, people! Like, I get it. We're not going to be batting 1,000, but like 500 would be nice."
Yeah, I mean, part of me, and there's a mix of that because you're right, Luke. Part of it is, because let's call it what it is from a pure growth standpoint as a writer. I've been related to that. So through my business, my actual career, I got connected with a writer, director, producer, and he's read my work over the years, and he's been very kind. And he actually said, Mark, this film could be a really great calling card for you. And because he said that, I was like, is it too subtle? Is it? So yeah, that banging the head against the wall, it's this constant sliding scale. But then I get that one comment where people are like, oh, this means this to me, and I'm watching this on the 5th anniversary of my husband dying. And the last quote that I just read on YouTube was, I cried buckets, right? So it's that
Wow.
constant battle back and forth
Yeah.
of, is it too subtle? Is it working? Is it not? Right?
It's yeah, but I see your point that it is hard when someone says to you that they're bawling, to not feel like, okay, we've accomplished something here.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
To kind of change the subject completely, I did notice in the credits that there was a credit for a coffin stand-in.
Correct.
Can you please
Yes.
explain to me what that person did? And is it what I would assume a coffin stand-in does?
Yeah, it was just the person that was the body in the casket without letting any spoilers out.
Where'd you get this casket?
Well, it was the Wagner
Barter?
family funerals had a relationship with a casket company I'm trying to remember where they're at in Michigan. And it was really almost funny in a way because they're like, yeah, we have like scratch and dent caskets.
Oh,
Where are the
Great.
scratches, frankly?
Right.
right. Outside,
start with that.
exterior or interior scratches.
I'd be scared if it was both.
Yeah.
Right.
Starting inside and then outside, who knows?
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, come up, you can use the casket. And so we drove up with my friend Alan, who passed away before he could see the film. He's in the credits. If you'll notice, there was a couple people credited in there. So we drove up with a van and got this casket and brought it down. And what's interesting is I was like, well, do we need to drive it back? Well, they were like, we'll talk to the funeral home. And they ended up using that casket for somebody who passed away who actually loved films.
Oh, that's sweet,
Wow.
actually. That's
Yes.
perfect.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of serendipity I'll give you another quick story that.
Wait a second. Before you get to that, did they knock like 10% off that casket for use?
They didn't even charge us anything.
No, I mean for the person who took it afterwards.
Right.
They get like a
Probably.
little haircut on the. Yeah, okay.
A little haircut.
Sure.
Can we get a little haircut? On this
Yeah,
mask?
just come on, just
You know,
a little off the top. But anyway,
Yeah.
you were saying.
and a plaque
Well-
that says "as seen in."
As seen in the funeral photographer.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. For posterity's sake.
Right. Yes.
So there's a lot of little great stories. So my friend Darlene Heemstra, I saw her at the Acorn Theater, where we go to a lot of shows here in Southwest Michigan, a couple months before we shot. And I said, hey, I'm looking for extras. And her husband, Clarence, they'd been married almost 60 years, had died that year. And she said he always wanted to be in a movie. And so she and her daughters have been carrying around these beautiful blue jars and taking him around the world. So she and her two daughters are extras in the movie, and they all carried those blue jars, and Clarence is listed as an extra in the movie.
That's
That
awesome.
is amazing. Does he have an
Yeah.
IMDb page?
No, not yet.
Yeah, you got to
Oh,
get
he
on
needs
that.
one.
That
Yeah.
would
We'll
be-
see what other my friend Fred, who plays one of the two we call them the uncles, the two guys that are waiting for whoever they're waiting for.
Mhm.
He's very proud of his IMDb page because he calls this film, he's not an actor, is his debut and his swan song.
That's
So,
amazing.
He did create a wonderful, funny IMDb page. If you look up Fred R. Jolly on the IMDb, you'll see a nice little page.
Which is
So-
great too, because his name, like when you hear his name, I feel like people are going to go, I've seen him in stuff though. That can't be right, because he's got a name that sounds like an actor.
Yeah.
Like, no, I've seen him in stuff. There's no way that's accurate.
So
Now,
this
Peter,
yes.
his counterpart is, I call him a Renaissance man. He's a stage actor, film actor, TV actor, voiceover artist, stunt car driver. Do you remember the movie Real Steel with Hugh
course.
Jackman?
Yeah,
Okay.
of course. Everybody here
Peter's-
was in it.
Yeah,
Everyone I know was in that movie.
he's the announcer in the ring at the end.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
he plays one of the two guys in our film.
Nice.
So does Fred look as your filmmaking experience as something so great he never wants to do it again, or something so awful he's like never again?
That's a great question. He absolutely, this guy is just radiates joy. I think it's no coincidence that his last name is Jolly, but
Right.
they've had so much fun with it. And he has an adventurous spirit. He rode his bike across the US in 27 days.
Ooh.
He and his wife had a motorhome. They visited every national park over 2.5 years, lived on the road. He hiked the Appalachian Trail through hike at 63 years old. So he's got an adventurous spirit.
He's got
And,
other stuff to do, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
Right.
And,
Okay.
and
Busy.
he would do it again. I'm going to find a way in my next project to find a way
He
to
can,
do
he
it.
can edit that page. He can change it.
That's right.
Throw him in as like the employee of the month on the wall somewhere.
That's a good idea.
Yes.
So this film is playing as part of the Beaver Island Festival. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yep.
So I'm assuming, having watched it on a laptop screen, that just looking at the colors and the shots and stuff, that this has got to play much, much better on a big screen with a room full of people.
It is, and especially in the venues where we could use our DCP, our 4K DCP on the
Ooh.
big screen. It has been, we were at the Catalina Island Film Festival, which was one of the many wonderful festivals, and it was in a smaller room, but it was on a bigger screen. It does, you're absolutely right. We did both our supporter premiere and a fundraising event at the Vickers Theater in Three Oaks. My buddy Zach just bought it. It's a 100-year-old theater, and we've had beautiful events there. By the way, anybody who goes Southwest Michigan, I highly recommend you visit the Vickers. It's a great place to go see a film.
Can we give them some sort of code word to say to just really screw with your friend's head?
Yeah, it's well, one of my friends, Gary, always likes a quote from the film. It's in the trailer, so I'm not spoiling anything, but it's a funeral. It's going to be weird. So if you walk in and say it's a movie, it's going to be weird, they'll probably know where that came from.
Perfect. Thank you,
Nice.
Gary. So what do you got on the on the stovetop now? You're working on feature, another short?
Yeah, I'm working on. I wrote an indie comedy drama that I don't feel that I'm really empowered to make, but I'm actually towards the tail end of writing a contained thriller. That I have a director friend of mine up here, who he and I are talking about making, and I'm very excited about. One of the things that, just to jump back really quickly,
Yes.
I want to shout out to Matt Dahan because we created a film that was so minimalistic and subtle in dialogue and exposition. The score needed to be a character, and Matt Dahan created a score that is, um, in my opinion, a character in the film. It carries the emotion. I would share with you offline. There's some Easter eggs, both visually but also in score, that I can't share with you now because it would be a spoiler. But
Sure.
Fair.
so I wanted to throw that out. So yeah, so back to your question. Yeah, I'm working on that, and I plan to produce that and shoot that, create that up here in Michigan.
The Funeral Photographer is screening as part of the Beaver Island Film Festival in Michigan, which is running from September 20th to 21st. And if you want to watch the film right now, you can find it on Omeletto, which is at youtube.com/at the symbol Omeletto, Omeleto, or you can just search Funeral Photographer Film.
Why the Podcast is produced by the Professional Production Company. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts because we're shallow and need constant validation. For more information, you can check out our website, whythepodcast.com. And like everyone else, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Today's show was recorded and produced by Heidi Hedquist and myself from our world headquarters located on the second floor of the Professional Office Building, centrally located downtown. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?